Hello, everybody, and welcome to Backstage Gaming, dramatic takes on your favorite games. I'm Chris.
I'm Dylan.
And we're here to talk to you about games, storytelling, how those things go together, how they sometimes go apart. And this week, we realized as we were prepping for this episode that I've kind of been more in the driver's seat than usual the last couple episodes. So this time we're going to have a Dylan-led special.
That's not what we realized. We realized that like right before we hit record. Shut up.
Yeah, before we started recording. But we're going to be talking about something fun that games do every now and then and you see this a lot in games where you can sort of pick a faction or you pick a starting point. Games with different but intersecting narratives.
Yeah, the word I used when I pitched it, I think, was concurrent storytelling, where you have multiple campaigns and they all kind of take place roughly around the same period of time, but they're from different perspectives.
And to the point where, like, maybe the same mission will take place in each campaign just with you from a different point of view, but the mission is, observing the same moment in time. But Dylan proposed several games for this, and I spent the last couple days trying to think of other games, but really all the ones Dylan brought up were, like, kind of the ones that I would have thought of on my own anyway.
I still feel like there's gotta be
there's definitely more.
In your head.
We'll see what happens as we're talking, because I do my best thinking in the moment when I'm not thinking at all. So we'll see what happens. But because it's us, and because we are who we are, and we talk about what we talk about, we gotta start with our boy, that
Sonic
spiky blue
the
sun.
Hedgehog.
Sonic, middle name the Hedgehog.
Actually, I'm sorry. Let's see. I need to double check what his Archie canon name is, because his first name is Maurice, actually. Yeah. Am I committing to this bit? No, I think I've done all I need to. Yeah. I've said all I need to say.
We've got Miles Tails Prower, and that's really as deep into the fandom as we need to prove ourselves.
But yeah, anyway.
This is something that the Sonic games have kind of been doing since Sonic 3.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to touch on that, because like, Sonic 3 is kind of a weird case.
Yeah, Sonic 3 is like borderline.
Yeah, because
concurrent storytelling.
Because Sonic and Tails are roughly on the same time, but they feel more like alternate scenarios of each other.
Yeah.
Rather than taking place at the same time. Like, they're both stories. And then Knuckles' mode is actually a sequel. It takes place after the game when you play as Sonic and Tails. So yeah, the first time we really get like these concurrent stories are with Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast, where they wanted to kind of throw a bunch of stuff at a dartboard on the wall and see what sticks.
That seems like a pretty accurate description. Like, if we're looking backwards, I was barely conscious when this game was being developed. But like, reverse engineering it, I believe that.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, was a pretty common... That's a fairly common, like, feeling for a lot of early 3D games.
Yeah, because like, how do we tackle this medium? I don't know. Let's just introduce a lot of different modes and see what sticks.
Yeah, very few of the first 3D example of a given franchise feel actually like they hold up by modern design standpoints.
Yeah, there's a couple I can think of. Man, even FF7, there's like the third of it that feels like a solid RPG, and then there's the 2/3 that are like, what if we added a snowboarding minigame? What if we added a submarine combat simulator? What if we added fucking motorcycle arcade game?
The motorcycle arcade game kicks ass. This is not what the episode's about.
Okay, yeah, I'm just happy you got to that moment.
It's so good.
But anyway, yeah, back to
what we're actually talking
Hedgehog.
about.
Yeah, because of that, you have four Sonic characters already kind of established in the four Sonic games that have led up to Sonic Adventure. You have Sonic from the original, Tails from Sonic 2, Knuckles from Sonic 3, and Amy Rose from Sonic CD. And they're all reintroduced here. They're given new designs, and they are experimenting with new gameplay styles for those. And then in addition to that, they added two brand new characters, Iwano E102 Gamma, which is a robot made by the series villain Dr. Eggman.
With a name like that, he's a robot?
Yeah, who would have guessed? Um, and then there is also Big the Cat. And we won't dwell on that. Sonic fans, if you know, you know.
Howard, I love my big tubby tabby boy.
I love him in the comics. In the game, he sucks.
That's fair.
So yeah, you have these 6 characters, and I think the interesting thing is that when you initially put the game in, you have sole control over Sonic. And when you're playing the game, it is a very bog standard, like, Sonic's here, Dr. Eggman's up to no good, fight him and save the city. Also, Eggman has, like, an elder water god type thing.
He has a jar full
what's
of blueberry jelly with googly eyes on it.
Yeah, and it's a bad thing, so you gotta stop that too.
His name is Chaos, not to be confused with the Chows, which are spelled exactly the same.
Yeah, that messed me up for a while.
Bugs me.
Yeah, but I wonder if that's, like, intentional. Like, do they read like Chow in Japanese? That's another kettle of fish. Kettle of Chow. But Chaos is Eggman's, like, latest scheme that he's got going to take over the world. But so while that's going down, all the other characters kind of have their own stories and inciting incidents and resolutions that, like, are all deeply personal in a way that Sonic's isn't, because Sonic has to be the generic save-the-day hero. So his sidekick, Tails, his story is about kind of coming out from under Sonic's shadow. He's starting to realize that he can't rely on Sonic to be there to save the day all the time. So it's Tails trying to learn to be a bit more independent, trying to utilize his own strengths more. So he's kind of a tech whiz, so he modifies Sonic's plane. He has a confrontation with Dr. Robotnik, so he actually saves the city, not Sonic. No, and his entire gameplay loop is actually about racing Sonic to the finish to try and get, like, the one-up on him.
I didn't know that. I love that.
Yeah, it's a really nice...
Sonic Adventure is a game that I need to revisit, because I played it when I was young, and then I discovered Sonic Adventure 2, which was just more fun to play.
Yeah. Like, especially with the Steam ports, be prepared for a lot of port jank.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because, like, the games are janky on their own, like, even the Dreamcast version.
I was going to say, even the Dreamcast version is rough.
Good as they are, like, they're still kind of janky, but, you know, if you can look past the jank, I think they're solid platformers, despite what the internet says. And so, yeah, next is... Oh, sorry,
just to offer a different opinion on that, I don't think they're solid platformers if you look past the jank. I think they're solid platformers if you immerse yourself in the jank.
You know what? You might have something there.
Like, those games are so inherently, like, weird, and...
The jank is kind of what makes it work.
Yeah, like, if you try to ignore the jank, you're gonna have a bad time. If you, like, study the jank...
If you embrace the jank.
Yeah, and, like, learn the weird quirks and weird, like, rough edges that are the game's kind of internal logic of gameplay, then they're fun.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair. This has been your weekly Sonic shill. But yeah, no, just to roll through the others really quickly before we move on. Knuckles' whole thing, in the previous game, he has been introduced as the guardian of this mysterious floating island, and all he knows is that it was assigned to him at birth that he was going to be the guardian of this MacGuffin that exists on this island, and he has to look over it, and he doesn't know why, he doesn't know like what his role is. He really has no family, so it's just kind of him in this solitary island all alone, thinking to himself, what is my purpose? And the inciting incident of Knuckles' story is that the Master Emerald, the MacGuffin that he's guarding, blows up, and that's where the chaos monster that Dr. Eggman has unleashed, that's where it comes from. It comes from the Master Emerald breaking. So Knuckles' gameplay loop is about, you know, getting his duty back together. That sounded like a different thing.
I wasn't gonna say it, but I'm glad you did.
I had to call myself out. His duty is to, because, like, I'm trying to think of what the word is, but, like, he's got to mend the emerald, because that is his job. And as he is going on this adventure to bring the Master Emerald back to its former state, he has multiple visions of his ancestry, like the world that this island used to be. And he's able to talk to the inhabitants and get a better idea on what is his legacy. And so that's an interesting thing. And this also ties into the greater plot of Sonic Adventure 1, because a lot of this particular game's story is focused around Knuckles' ancestry and how it ends. And then to cap it off, I won't talk about the new characters, but to cap it off, Amy's gameplay is like, she was a damsel in distress. Her gameplay loop is about being able to get herself out of a jam.
With a big fuck-off hammer.
Yeah, it's very similar to Tails' story, but, it's different in context.
Yeah. And then, so Sonic Adventure 1 establishes this new idea of, like, witnessing multiple characters' stories over the course of the plot. And then Sonic Adventure 2 is like, what if we did that twice? Because in Sonic Adventure 2, when it begins, you pick either... It's not good or evil, it's hero and dark. Are those the two modes?
Yeah, it's hero story and dark story.
Yeah, so hero, it's split gameplay-wise between Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Dark, it's split between Shadow, Eggman, and Rouge the Bat. And the gameplay is parallel, so Sonic and Shadow are both like the classic Sonic, run fast, jump, do loop-de-loops. Tails and Eggman both have mech suits, so it's not quite fair to call it a rail shooter, but like that's the closest.
That's kind of what they're going for.
Gameplay example I can give. And then Rouge and Knuckles both have like scavenger hunt levels where you have to search these big wide open areas for the missing Chaos Emeralds.
And they're way better than people say they are. Fuck you, fight me. People hate those levels. I think they're amazing. Like, granted, they're amazing if you've been playing the game since it came out, but that's neither here nor there.
But so whereas Sonic Adventure 1, it was like, all right, you play the game and you cycle between these, 6 different characters that are all have like their own personal stories taking place within the larger context of like Robotnik's latest scheme. Sonic Adventure 2, you've got 3 different characters that you're watching deal with like their personal part of a big problem, but then there's also 3 other characters that are doing the same thing, just like from the opposite perspective.
And I think the most interesting thing about Sonic Adventure 2, at least from a story perspective, is that there are 2 story modes. There are like 4 factions in Sonic. So Sonic and Tails are doing this to stop Eggman. Knuckles is doing this because the Emerald has fallen apart again, but like he did that on his own volition because he didn't want it to get stolen, and he knows now that he can put it back together. Rouge is a government agent who's actually joining Eggman to spy on him. Eggman is trying to take over the world, and Shadow is tricking Eggman into activating a cannon that will destroy the Earth because the U.S. government took away those he loves most. That is not an exaggration.
Yeah,
that
no,
is the
Shadow
story.
the Hedgehog is a narrative mess.
No, Shadow's
stretched over
great.
multiple games.
Yes, stretched over multiple games, he sucks, but, like, no, shut up. I love Shadow. Like, does he belong in a Sonic game? That's debatable, but, like, if Shadow was, like, a dumb anime character...
You're not even good enough to be my fake.
I'll make you eat those. No one who hasn't played Sonic Adventure 2 is gonna get me.
I'm the ultimate life form.
Maria.
Here's the deal. Mm-hmm. The Sonic games... This is a slight tangent. We'll get back onto our topic. The Sonic games have some dopey fucking voice acting. I absolutely love the earnestness with which Shadow's voice actor like went for it.
You know what? That's fair.
Because it's over the top, and he's an absolute he's the worst anime edgelord you could ever imagine.
He is incredibly broody. Shadow has good details in his character and backstory, but his execution is, like Chris said, a mess.
But I love the voice delivery that he has, and it's so fun to listen to.
So I'm gonna say this real quick. My favorite voice actor for Shadow is actually the second generation. So there are different voice companies that have dubbed the Sonic characters over the years.
Yeah.
During the quote-unquote 4Kids era, so when, like, the Sonic X TV show was airing on TV, they got New York voice talent to do it. And the person who voices Shadow in that era of dubbing also voices Sonic. And so it's really entertaining
cool.
to hear him
like
differentiate between the two.
That's also fun because Shadow is genetically based on Sonic.
Yeah.
So that's a fun little bit of meta casting decision. I like that. But anyway, so like Sonic Adventure 2 compounds this because you end up seeing, if you play the game through both campaigns, you see the same story, like the same sort of initial problem and grand thing through the point of view of 6 different characters, all with kind of their own thing that they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And it comes together in some interesting ways. Like, those points of intersection are interesting and something that, like, the closest example I can think of is kind of the way that some novels, particularly like big fantasy novels, will jump from character to character and have different perspectives from chapter to chapter. But it's still, like, it's a slightly different experience when you're playing through that, and especially when it's an optional thing, like whether you're playing Hero or Dark, kind of impacts who wins in some of those moments where the characters come face to face in an interesting way.
There's still, like, a canon outcome, I believe, but, like, the different stories cut away so that it gives you the impression that whichever side you're winning is winning.
Yeah.
Last thing I'm going to say about Sonic before we move on. One of the biggest mind-blowing moments for me when I was, like, 8, maybe I was 9, was playing Sonic Adventure 2. And, you know, I'm playing a lot of Hero Story, and it's like, haha, escape from the city, and it's fun, I'm having a blast. And then I play Dark Story, and Dark Story, I think the difficulty is harder than Hero Story. So, you know, that one takes me a little longer to chip away at, but once you beat, like, the 4th level or something, they play the same cutscene that happens after the first level of Sonic Adventure 2, or the Hero Story, rather, and there's just kind of this moment where I'm like, oh, wow, Dark Story takes place way before Heroes, and it's just kind of cool to see how it intersects, because you're like, I didn't realize this.
Yeah, and it's fun because they're telling the story from these characters' perspectives, and it's wrapped up in what these different characters want and what they're trying to do, it makes sense that there would be some time dilation there. And the discovery that, like, the inciting incident for Hero Story is the result of the actions you've been doing in Dark Story is a really cool little, like, oh, moment. God, those games are cool. Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. I love those games. I love their goofy stories that try too hard, but I'd rather they try too hard than not at all.
Absolutely. We have now talked about Sonic the Hedgehog for 20 minutes.
I was about to say, how long have we talked about... We gotta
because
stop
we're
doing
us.
This, Chris.
I know. By this, I assume you mean the podcast.
Welcome to the Sonic the Hedgehog Theater Podcast, actual play podcast. Where we
oh, God. No, thank you. So, Dylan, you mentioned that the reason you thought of this topic was because you'd been playing another game recently that I was
actually going to save that game for last.
Okay, never mind. Well, Chris, cut out this bad transition.
Nope, keep it in. Fire Emblem.
Well, fuck, now I have to keep it in, because otherwise that's going to make no sense.
Me just yelling over
Yep. Anyway, Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem.
This is another game that, like, we've been talking about Fire Emblem recently because it's been on our minds. We've both been playing the newest edition. Again, you're going to have to take the lead on this one, Dylan, because you have played much more of the older Fire Emblems than I have, but I've been playing through...
You've played more Three Houses than I have.
Well, yes.
So this is your chance to lead, my guy.
Well, I thought you were actually... I was more interested because Three Houses does it, but I don't feel equipped to talk as much about it because I haven't experienced any of the alternate storytelling things. And correct me if I'm wrong, because like I said, you've played more of the older games. There's a similar element of this in the Game Boy Advanced era Fire Emblems, right?
Yes. The Fire Emblem, the Sacred Stones specifically, allows you... So, the main characters of Fire Emblem, the Sacred Stones, are Erica and Ephraim. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
I think you're right.
Really silly if
it's
I'm
always
wrong.
in text. They couldn't
exactly.
put voice acting on the Game Boy Advance.
I haven't played Fire Emblem Heroes, so I don't know any other pronunciation.
Yeah.
Anyway, that being said, there are two lords. You start with Erica, and to be fair, my brother has played more of the Sacred Stones than I have, but there is a point where they are together and they split back apart, and you decide which lord you want to go through, and you can see their story, and on a repeat playthrough, you can go from the other perspective.
I know you just said that you haven't played as much of this as your brother has, but how different are those stories? Are you aware?
Story-wise, I'm not sure. I do know that Ephraim's is more difficult.
Okay.
I know that Ephraim's character is that he's a bit more of a go-getter. Like the Lord of the Rings, it's time to hunt some orc.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That is my understanding of Ephraim's character. Erica is, she's not a warrior by nature, so I think she takes the easier route. But that is the extent of my knowledge. I have not played a lot of this game. Most of what I know about it is from word of my brother's mouth.
That's fair. But the Fire Emblem games, because there's a little bit of this also in, I don't remember what its actual subtitle is because it was just
Fire
released in
Emblem
America
Fates.
as Fire Emblem.
Oh, wait, what? I mean, that doesn't... Actually, I guess that does count. I just never thought about that.
Because,
Fire Emblem Blazing Blade.
Blazing Blade, thank you.
Rekka no Ken.
Which in America was just released as Fire Emblem because it was the first Fire Emblem game to make it stateside. But it was another Game Boy Advance game, and it's similarly, you sort of pick which of 3 available main characters.
That's not quite true. Okay, so you only ever picked Hector, didn't you?
No, I've been playing it recently with Lynn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the big difference there is you can if you pick there's Hector and Eliwood are 2 of the.
Yeah, so to elucidate things real quick, when you have a blank cartridge and not a fully completed cartridge, you actually play the first 10 chapters as Lynn because she's kind of the tutorial, and then the game takes you straight from Lynn's story to Eliwood's story, and then you play that to the end. And once you beat the game, you have the option of starting up back from Lynn's story, at which point you will play those 10 chapters again and go and pick if you want to do Eliwood's or Hector's. Or you have the option of starting with Eliwood or Hector. And Eliwood and Hector are the other main characters. I realize I've just been kind of talking like you all know these characters. Hector's mode is an alternate telling of Eliwood's story from Hector's perspective. And so the main character of Fire Emblem, for all intents and purposes, is Eliwood. He is on a mission to find his father, and this leads him to stumble into a kind of Illuminati behind the scenes. We're trying to puppet master the different governments into a war, and so he's got to prevent that. When you beat the game, you have the option of playing through the game, that portion of the game again as Eliwood's best friend Hector, who is the younger brother of a lord and Eliwood's best friend. So he actually he leaves because he's not very popular with the nobles and he doesn't want to bring unwanted scrutiny towards his brother. So he leaves for that reason, and he also leaves to help Eliwood find his father. And so there are extra cutscenes that are added. There are also extra levels that are just Hector from his perspective. And there are new story beats that have to do with Hector's relationship with his brother that were not present in the main game.
I'm glad I have you here because I would have gotten that wrong because I'm still playing it and all of the Game Boy Advance games I have are hand-me-downs.
No, I got you. I didn't think to mention the Fire Emblem GBA just because I don't know why, but that was a good pull. I didn't think about that one.
No, you're good. And then now with Three Houses that's recently come out.
Oh shit! I just forgot something.
What's up?
Fire Emblem does this a lot more often.
Yeah, honestly.
So
well, I mean, it makes sense for Fire Emblem because Fire Emblem is a game about the series. Sort of thesis statement has always been looking at war and at conflict, but from a very personal point of view. And so that's
quite say that, but sorry.
You're being contrarian today, Gregory.
I don't mean to.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm being that guy.
I guess I should say all of the Fire Emblem games I have played, which are a fair portion of Fire Emblem, Blazing Blade, and like I've played Fire Emblem Path of Radiance for the GameCube like 6 times.
Yeah.
Most of Radiant Dawn, I haven't beaten it yet, and now a fair amount of Three Houses. Like
so you have played through most of Radiant Dawn.
Yes.
Because that's the game I was going to mention next.
Okay, cool. But like the common thread among these is they're fantasy games about war, but for the most part told from the point of view of like someone who is involved, but a like core band of people involved in the fighting. So as much as it is about like the grand stakes of the war, it's concerned with those mostly insofar as they concern individuals and individuals' relationships.
Yeah, I think that becomes more prevalent with the introduction of support, like these optional conversations between characters.
Yeah, which we've talked about before, but in case this is your first episode, characters that fight near each other in Fire Emblem, especially in the more recent games, develop like a support relationship, and you can have them have a brief conversation in which you learn about the characters, and that then gives them mechanical bonuses on the battlefield.
Yeah. I guess, like, where I'm coming from is, like, I've been playing a lot of the Super Nintendo games that don't have that optional dialogue.
Okay.
And so it is a much more, like, kind of big picture, like, this is a grand tale of heroism, and, like, I haven't read the Iliad, but I'm hoping the Iliad is a good comparison point.
Makes
where
sense.
It's not, like, super personal, like, there are these big names who made great contributions during battle, but
actually the Iliad is an incredibly personal story.
Okay, I mean, like, you could be right. I don't know. I haven't read it.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm a classics minor. The Iliad is about one dude being real sulky about having his loot taken away, and then his lover dies, and then he is very angry.
So I don't have, like, a proper
I can be
frame of
contrarian
reference.
too, Dylan.
No, I mean, like, I want to be called out on this, and I have no clue how much of this we're editing out.
Oh no, I'm leaving this. This is great podcasting.
Oh, okay. Amazing podcasting. So fine. Whatever, like, classical story
anyway,
where it's like...
I get what you're coming from. Yeah. No, I was just turning the tides on you.
Maybe it's Arthurian? I don't know. I don't know my myths and all that good stuff. So, Radiant Dawn. Radiant Dawn does an interesting thing where it is a direct sequel to the GameCube game Path of Radiance, where you are playing as Ike and you are leading an army to try and liberate the nation of Crimea from the Imperial Daeans. And you get the Holy Kingdom of Begnion to back you up. And so, you save the day, you liberate your country. Begnion,
everyone cheers.
The evil Daean emperor has fallen, and now Begnion is occupying Daean. Cut to Radiant Dawn, the sequel, which takes place 2 or 3 years later, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this before on the show, and it was far less time than any of us thought based on the character art change.
Oh, wow, okay.
Like, it's a couple years, but, like, I was anticipating it being much more just based on how some of the returning characters' sprites are updated.
No, they're vegetables. They had growth spurts. But yeah, no, so Radiant Dawn takes place a year, I guess, after Path of Radiance. The perspective changes. You are now playing as a group of Daean rebels trying to throw off the oppressive Begnion occupants. And this is a story that you follow for, I want to say 10 or 15 chapters. Before
something like that, yeah.
And you're basically switching different perspectives to different people. I think that the time still flows linearly, so when it switches perspective to the next story, that's just the next chapter. It's chronologically after the section you've been playing. But things come to a head in, like, the 3rd or 4th chapter, where you're playing as the members of the old cast, the Crimean army, and they have to fight the Daean rebels. So the game does this cool thing where you will play the chapter as one of the groups, and then you will play the next chapter, which is that same battle from the other perspective.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Unless I'm completely making this up, like, if I'm completely misremembering, because it's been about a decade. I don't think you are.
It's been a minute since I've played Radiant Dawn.
It has been a decade since I've played Radiant Dawn, so I could be completely off base.
But that serves as a nice springboard to Three Houses, the newest Fire Emblem game, which not going to talk about in as much detail because, for one thing, I still have not beaten my first playthrough. For another thing, it is like a month old, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
You forgot to mention Fire Emblem Fates.
I haven't played Fire Emblem Fates.
I know. I haven't played it either. I'm just gonna say real quick. There's a Fire Emblem game. It's got like it's got the Pokemon like red version, blue version. Whichever version you choose is the army you fight for.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was how that worked.
Yeah.
Interesting.
If you download the game digitally, you can pick one, and then you're like hard locked out of the other campaign, and you have to download it as DLC, and it's really scummy. Moving on.
Yeah, that's less cool than when you first said the words out loud. But so in Three Houses, as suggested by the name, very early on you pick one of three houses at this, medieval warrior Hogwarts to be in charge of. And that determines the group of characters that you have in your party to begin with, and it determines several important things about the story. Not going to go into super detail, but the first half of that game is very interesting because it features a lot of this concurrent storytelling we're talking about, where the missions that you're facing are all the same, but the exact details of how they play out vary slightly depending on which house you're leading. And then a big twist happens, and then from there, the plot lines branch off really substantially. I can only speak to one of them because I'm still playing my first playthrough, but currently, one of the leaders of one of the other houses is presumed dead in my playthrough.
Oh.
Because he's not important to the playthrough that I'm doing. I don't know if he's actually dead. I'm being as vague as I possibly can to avoid spoilers, but given that I know for a fact if you pick that house, he's not dead, because that's how the game works, that's pretty substantial. And that's interesting because it's a slightly different take on what we're talking about. With a lot of these examples of the concurrent storytelling and the things coming together, that's a matter of all of the writing and all of the setup being very tight to allow for those moments of intersection to work.
Mm-hmm.
With Three Houses and with this kind of wide, diverging storytelling, it's almost the opposite. You almost need, without anything getting confusing or anything getting muddled, you almost need to let the setup be more broad and more general to allow for all of the specific stuff in those different stories that come out of it to continue to make sense. And that's really impressive. And as far as I can tell from what I've heard from other people who've played other versions of, other, paths
campaigns
in Three Houses,
yeah,
they do a pretty dang good job. No, I haven't heard anyone say man, the choice I made led to a bad story, which kudos to the writers and the developers of that game, because
I think
that's
it
challenging.
actually wasn't written by anyone at Intelligent Systems. I think they got the Koei Tecmo people who they do the Dynasty Warriors games, and I think they also do Romance of the Three Kingdom strategy RPGs.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it paid off, because this is one of the better Fire Emblem stories from what I understand.
Yeah. We've been talking for a good long time. Let's slide into the playbill. We'll chat a little bit there together. You, Dylan, me, all of us. Talk about some other things that are going on. And then we'll come back and round this bad boy out.
Yeah. I didn't think we'd talk this long.
We've had a lot to talk about.
We talked a lot about Sonic. That's... we've
talked almost as long about Fire Emblem, so...
Yeah, we brought out the magic blue button, and then also Fire Emblem's Fresh, so...
Yeah. So anyway, we're in the playbill. This is where we talk about other projects, other things that are going on, other things we're proud of, other things we have to plug. To start with, as always, hey Dylan, I've been getting back into watching anime.
Have you now?
Yeah, I
saw you tweet about watching My Hero Academia.
Yeah, it's partially because I want to get more into I want to hear more and more dubbing work, because that's a big part of the voiceover industry.
Yeah.
But also just watching My Hero Academia has been reminding me I used to really like watching anime. Why did I fall out of this? And you watch a lot of anime, and in fact you talk about a lot of anime with our friend Coop in a show called...
Dude, you remember Macross. So it is a show where we talk about the old 80s sci-fi classic anime, Macross, which also has a movie called Do You Remember Love? That's what the reference is. And we talk about the show, try to break down me being an actor, I try to analyze the characters and break down their motives and stuff like that. And I also like to look at it as a piece of science fiction. So I like to take down the themes and try to break it down to the nitty-gritty. And it's just us being nerds and weebs and joking about Japanese culture, not in a derogatory way, just about how much we love it. And it's a fun time. So if you guys want to check that out, check out anchor.fm/dude, that is DUDE, you remember. We are also on Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.
You can also hear both of us in the upcoming Season 2 of The Unexplored Places, an actual play podcast run by our friend Christine. It is
What? Season 2's coming out? No, I'm sorry.
I mean, someday. Not yet. But it's a great actual play podcast. Season 1 was run in the Monster of the Week system based on Powered by the Apocalypse. And it was super great. It was a very spooky Midwestern horror kind of show. Season 2, which should be dropping sometime in the next couple months. We're still recording a few episodes, and Christine is going off to begin a PhD program, so they're trying to get as much done pre-launch as possible, which I do not blame them for at all.
Yeah.
But when it comes out, it's going to be sci-fi. I'm going to be in the main recurring cast. Dylan is going to be sort of a rotating, as he's available character. Having recorded a session of it already, it's real fun. The dynamic is already very cool, so you should definitely check that out. You can find them on Twitter at unexploredcast or by going to unexploredcast.libsyn.com. I'm in several other projects. Most of them have either come out a few weeks ago or will be coming out at some point in the future that I can't give like an exact date on. So all I'm going to say is, if you like my voice and want to hear me in other things, because I've got quite a few things on the burners right now, follow me on Twitter at CJWilsonVA. And you should follow Dylan on Twitter too. Dylan's a fun guy on Twitter. Dylan, what's your Twitter handle?
I try to be. My Twitter handle is at @thedilla. That is THA_DILA.
And we, Backstage Gaming, this thing you're listening to, have a Patreon that helps keep us going. It is what we use to pay for our overhead, like website hosting fees and all that kind of stuff. And it is funded by you, the fans, and it helps us to keep this thing going without going into the red. And as it gets bigger, if we are lucky enough for it to, we'll be using that to fund things like better recording equipment, better recording setups, maybe even doing more shows if we get the income we need to like have, make the time to do that. But if you like what we're doing, if you like our show and you like what we're putting out into the world and want to support that, you should check out patreon.com/BSGpod. That is where you can find that. You can check out the reward tiers. And if you so choose, you can become a patron. And we appreciate each and every one of you who has done that and who wants to do that. That's all I got in this little tidbit. Dylan, you got anything?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, then let's just slide
To the left.
back into the show. Let's see. I think the only thing left on the docket that you proposed was the idea that kicked this whole thing off. Dylan, am I correct?
I actually wanted to talk about Resident Evil 2.
Oh, that's right. You did. Tell me about that.
Okay, I'll make this quick because I really want to leave off on the next game. But, so Resident Evil, at least the games I've played, 2 of them, Resident Evil 2 and 4, have concurrent storylines. To focus on Resident Evil 2, the big thing that it was marketed with was... So Resident Evil 1 had 2 campaigns where you played as Chris, this big beefy dude, and Jill, who is... I can't really describe her physically without sounding like a pig.
Physically, she's a woman in a video game from the late 90s.
Yeah,
if you know, you know.
Like, she's not, like, the worst.
No, she's not...
It's not... She is a woman that you would see on a Hollywood poster.
Yeah.
Or something. But, yeah, and you can choose to go through the campaign with one or the other. They have different properties, different weapons, different item placements, whatever. It's cool. The story doesn't change. They just switch places. So Resident Evil 2, one of the big selling points of that game was this thing called the zapping system, where you would play through a campaign as one of the characters, Leon and Claire, and then you would play through, once you beat the game, you had the option of saving, and then you would insert the other disc that had the other character on it, and you would continue from that campaign with that character, like from that character's perspective. So I guess the reason why I'm tripping over my words right now is that the big thing about the zapping system is the order that whichever character you picked first, they would go through one route, and the character you would pick second, they would go through a different route.
Interesting.
So yeah, the first route kind of brings you head to head with a head researcher of the Umbrella Corporation that is the main antagonist of the series, and a lot of the plot is dealing with that monster. But the second campaign is dealing with Mr. X, which is this giant, tall, hulking figure that is sent. You think it's sent after you, but it's actually sent after something you're carrying on you.
Mr. X is one of those things that, like, he himself looks real goofy, but the way he's implemented is really effective, scary stuff.
Exactly. That's what makes him work.
I love him.
If you play through the game as Leon first and then Claire, they have to deal with different external forces, and they have different starting areas, and their stories play out slightly differently. They still meet the same people. They still talk to the same people, with, like, I think 2 exceptions. Most of the NPCs they interact with are the same, but the timing and context in which these interactions happen is different. And so, essentially, there are 2 different stories split among 4 campaigns.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest things about Resident Evil 2, and a lot of people were bummed when the remake didn't quite pull that off.
I had no idea. I've never been as much a Resident Evil person as you, but that's really interesting. Do they feel as coherent? Like, because I
would say they feel about as coherent as the Sonic games.
Okay, because that was kind of my question, because, like,
in terms of story, in terms of mechanics, like, you know, you'll be like, oh, I picked up this item as Leon in the other campaign, but it was in a completely different area. So, you know, that's kind of goofy, but even still, it like, story-wise, it
story-wise and narrative-wise
well
for the characters, they don't, like, feel disjointed, I guess, is the best way of asking the question, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they make it work.
That's really
again,
cool.
Not so much in Resident Evil 2, because, the remake, rather, because the starting area is different, and you get different weapons, and Mr. X shows up slightly earlier. But other than that, the stories are more or less the same, regardless of, like, who you're playing as and when you're playing as them.
Gotcha.
It's just the game itself is remixed a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but
that's a little disappointing.
Yeah, but I get it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But yeah, no. So Resident Evil 2 does that, and it's really cool. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else to say on that point, but I don't think so. So let's keep rolling. Resident Evil 4 is a pretty good game. One of the coolest things.
That is such a wild understatement to hear come out of your mouth.
Resident Evil 4, fine, is one of the most influential third-person shooters of the mid-2000s. Is that what you wanted to hear?
I mean, that is true. I was more surprised from a Dylan Gregory's, like, personal opinion on games point of view. Because I know you love that game.
I love Resident Evil 4. It is such a good game.
I appreciate that you were trying to be, like, keep it under wraps and be professional. I was just like, who are you and what have you done with Dylan?
Fine. Resident Evil 4 is the GOAT. Don't at me.
There it is.
But, okay, anyway, one of the so you can play through Resident Evil 4, and it is a game where you are playing as Leon. Hey, he's from Resident Evil 2, and you beat the game. You rescue the president's daughter because that's the plot. And happy ending, whatever.
Yes.
Yes. And the PS2 version of Resident Evil 4 adds an extra campaign. I think it's called Separate Ways, which are a bunch of levels that take place in the Resident Evil 4 map, but they're from Ada's perspective, and there are new cutscenes, which isn't something
Ada's the
Capcom
president's
always
daughter,
does.
right?
No, that's Ashley. Ada is a character from Resident Evil 2. She's Leon's love interest, who turns out to be a spy who is there to steal a sample from Umbrella and sell it to another company.
Cool. Umbrella
yeah.
are the big bads of the Resident Evil franchise. They make zombies.
Yes.
Just making sure we cover all our bases.
Okay, yep. So you think she dies in Resident Evil 2.
I do.
No matter which campaign, of whichever Leon campaign you do, Ada dies in different ways. But it turns out she's not dead, so whatever. She's in Resident Evil 4, and she's still on her old bullshit, but, like, you know, they help each other out from time to time during that game. And in separate ways, you are playing through key moments of the game from Ada's perspective. I can only remember the first one specifically, but near the beginning of Resident Evil 4, you are fighting off an entire village to keep things simple and not have to go into too much exposition. You are fighting a village full of zombies.
Yeah.
And a church bell rings, and they all kind of turn over to the church bell, and they're like, "We're being called to the church. We have to go." And so when you're playing separate ways, the first mission is Ada sees that Leon is struggling. She goes to run over to the church and ring the bell.
That's
and
really cool.
She has a time limit to save Leon, and Leon doesn't know she's here. So it's a really cool, like,
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're just side missions, so it's not like an entire separate campaign, but like they're nifty. I think they're neat.
That's really cool. I had no idea that those exist, and you just made me want to go play Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, Switch version's a little overpriced, and I don't know how the Steam version is, so you're on your own looking for a good version of that game to play.
We'll see.
Okay.
And now, the OG thought creator that Dylan first mentioned when he came up with this topic, Odin Sphere.
Yeah, so recently I've been replaying Odin Sphere Lifthrasir. That's probably not how it's pronounced, but I don't know Norse, so fuck it.
Same.
It's a HD remaster of the game Odin Sphere for the PS2, and it's a very interesting game, both the game's multiple stories and the way it frames them. The framing for Odin Sphere is that you are a little girl in your grandfather's attic, and there are a collection of books of fairy tales for you to read. And so you pick up the first one, and you are transported from this attic to playing out that story. The first
Which is
campaign,
very charming.
I love it.
Honestly,
there's a little cat in the attic named Socrates that you can carry and pet on the armchair. It's so great.
It is well worth, if you've never heard of this game, like, look up some still images of it. It's a really pretty game. Like, everything about it aesthetically is very storybook-esque.
It's
real charming.
So you're playing through this game, and the fairy tale is about the Valkyrie Gwendolyn, and it's her entire story. It's like a Sonic Adventure thing where they give her a clear incident. They give her a clear super objective. She desires to be loved by her father, Odin. This is based on Norse mythology, but it is not, like, it doesn't even try to be Norse mythology like a lot of other Japanese RPGs do.
It's drawing on the, like, visual shorthand and the naming conventions without actually, like,
leaning into...
It's not retelling any of the stories.
No, definitely not. But it is... So Gwendolyn is desiring her father's love, and a lot of the story, like, is her trying to win that in different ways. I don't want to spoil anything because I really want people to go and check out Odin Sphere. It can't be that expensive now. It's been out for like 3 or 4 years. But, you know, she has a full story and resolution. There is a cutscene selector in Odin Sphere, and I guess in the original PS2 Odin Sphere, it doesn't show you how long over time the story goes, but in the PS4 remaster it does. And so you actually see that Gwendolyn's starts like in the middle of a lot of other people's stories and ends way after all of them. There's like a huge time skip that you don't realize unless you're looking at the timeline for each story and how they intersect. It's really cool. So, you know, Gwendolyn's story has a resolution. It's like a 6 to 8 hour campaign. Then Alice, the girl in her grandfather's attic reading the story, puts down the book and picks up another book and reads another story. And they are all fairy tales that... There are 5 books total. They are all fairy tales that really tell their own stories, but with cameos from the other characters. Sometimes they're antagonistic towards one another, sometimes they're on good terms and are working together. It varies from story to story, and I guess that's another cool thing, is that, like, each of these characters hail from a different nation, and there is, you know, a three-way war going on. So, like...
Which would complicate things a little bit.
Oh, definitely. So it's complex and messy, and the part of the joy is kind of seeing, like, when does this character play into this other character's story, and how do they contribute or become an obstacle to the resolution of their character arc. It's really good stuff. Also, something I forgot to mention. So this game likes to really lean into the idea that it is theatrical in some way. Not quite to the same level as Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, but when you start up a character's story for the first time, you hear, like, an orchestra start to tune their instruments.
Oh, I love that.
It's such a nice touch.
In the theater theory world, we refer to this sort of calling attention to the artifice as a Brechtian concept. And astute listeners, remember that, because we might come back to that someday.
At some point. I've been holding off on that episode, but it's coming.
I want to do it too. It'll be a good
one. But yeah, no, so it's really good, and I really love this game, and I really want people to play it. But
what I played of it back when we lived together was very fun.
Yeah.
Gameplay-wise, for anyone who has been, you know, intrigued by what we've described so far, it's like a 2D brawler meets a character action game.
Yeah.
It's like if Double Dragon for the NES had Devil May Cry combos.
Yeah, if you could do, like, air juggles and special moves.
And as someone who loves the concept of character action games and played a shit ton of Double Dragon for the NES when he was a kid, it was a good combo.
It is a very accessible game, too. You don't need to be a master at Marvel vs. Capcom to do air combos and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I don't want to drag this out. I feel like I had more to talk about, but, like, honestly, maybe Odin Sphere deserves its own episode or something.
It sounds like we could do a nice, good deep dive on that. There's definitely a lot to talk about in that game and the way that it puts itself together.
Well, you know what? I'm replaying it, so, you know, I'll let you know if anything comes to mind. But I guess the last thing I'll say is that, so once Alice reads all the books, there is a final book where the stories don't actually come together, but I don't know what I want to say about this, actually. But the stories don't come together, but it is, for all intents and purposes, the conclusion of their stories, except it's not. And the story concludes in the real world, and it's really cool. People should, if you can't play Odin Sphere, if there is no platform where it is available for you, watch the cutscenes at least. Like, give me something.
Dylan demands your attention be paid to this game.
You
don't want, like, Dylan to die, do you?
The story isn't, like, you know, mind-blowing. It's, you know, it's no iconoclast. No, I mean, like, but, you know, even that being said, I still think it's a really good story, and it's really fun and enjoyable to see how it all comes together by the end.
There's something to be said for a game telling a more simple story in an interesting and creative way.
I also think it needs a Switch port. It is one of the games I think that is most deserving of a Switch port.
Adore that. Give me that and give me Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and I'll be a happy boy.
Hey, you know what? Those are both good games. I think, yeah, we can wrap up.
Yeah, that feels like a good place to end the episode. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us sort of dig into the interesting things that can happen when you look at a story from different angles and from multiple angles in one instance. This was fun to talk about. This was one of those episodes where we're like, yeah, we can probably do that, and then we talked for way longer than we expected to on, like, every single one of these.
Well, I guess
examples.
I wasn't expecting Fire Emblem to be as long as it was, because I was only thinking about Three Houses. I didn't consider the other times it does this.
Yeah, but this was fun. I really enjoyed this. It made me think about and remember some games that I very much want to play, so we'll have to, maybe we'll revisit this topic in, like, a more deep dive on one example kind of thing sometime in the future.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But until then, and until next time, thank you for listening to Backstage Gaming. We hope you enjoyed yourselves. We enjoyed having you here. And you can find everything you need to know about our show, including current episodes and bios and a contact sheet, by going to bsgpod.com. That is our website. If you have anything that you want to reach out to us directly about, that's a great way to do it. And it's also just got some info about the show. We've got like a glossary of sort of theater terms that we've been amassing. We've got all kinds of stuff there. And you can find our show, if you don't want to do it through our website, through whatever podcatcher you use, or the Apple Podcast service, Spotify, Stitcher, anything like that. If you like the show, if you like what we do, please consider leaving us a rating, leaving us a review on iTunes. That's a really great way to help us grow, as well as telling your friends about it, telling your family, telling your neighbors, telling your bus driver. Bus drivers spend a lot of time in buses. Maybe they need podcasts. They probably need podcasts.
Tell your cat Socrates, who lives in your attic.
Yeah, the one that we all have.
Yeah.
But seriously, sharing this with people who you think would enjoy our very specific brand of content means the world to us, and is the best way to help us reach more people and grow this thing that we're doing. So, yeah, keep on doing you, sexy people.
If you sexy people want to engage with us on social media, that felt gross. I'm getting a back pedal. If you guys want to engage with us on social media, you can check us out on Facebook, on Twitter. Our handle is @BSG_cast. And you can also find us on YouTube. I think if you like to talk about any of the ideas we've been putting down, you should.
What happened to you? Did you just melt?
I kept
oh god,
on
he's
trying,
being pulled into the microphone.
I kept on trying to say you should, and my SHs weren't working. But if you want to talk about any of the stuff we're putting down, you should use the hashtag BSGPod.
Yeah, it's a guaranteed way to make sure I see it. I personally have a tab in my TweetDeck interface specifically dedicated to anyone who uses hashtag BSGPod. Currently, let me just scroll through here. It's entirely me and the Backstage Gaming Twitter account. Come play with me in this space so I'm not as lonely.
I'll start using BSGPod.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, you don't need to apologize.
I'm a terrible co-host.
Never say that about yourself. You're beautiful and perfect just the way you are.
Check out our Patreon.
No, plug Brennan, wait.
Oh, right. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong page. I'm looking at my personal
you're good.
plugs that I use.
I just want to drill into what you just said.
Yeah, that's what my plugs say. Anyway.
That's it.
Also, huge thanks to our friend Brendan French for the key art he has provided for us. If you're digging what he has, you should check him out at brennan-french.squarespace.com. That is BRENNEN-French.squarespace.com. You can also check him out at Instagram at instagram.com/BrennanFrenchArts.
And please do go show some love to our friend BioQuery. He is the musician behind our theme song, Dot Sound Radio Volume 1 Instrumentality. He's a fantastic producer, a fantastic electronic music composer. He's got a couple EPs out recently, one called Post-Human Angst, that's all of his solo work, and one called Links Volume 1 that he was the producer for, but it's a collaborative project for a bunch of hip-hop artists from around the country. They're both really good, and you can find those by searching for BioQuery on Spotify, that's BIOQUERY, or by going to soundcloud.com/BioQuery. And one more time, if you like what we're doing, if you want to support us in a very direct and fungible way, the best way to do that is through our Patreon, patreon.com/BSGpod. That is how we are funding the show and funding the necessary overhead. And if it grows, if we're lucky enough that you people want to support us and want to help us do this more and do this better, all of the money that we get to our Patreon is going to go into things like recording setups and making the time for extra shows and just improving what we're doing to make it the best possible experience for you. Thank you to all of our patrons. Thank you to any of you who are considering being patrons. It really does mean the world to us, the level of support that we've gotten. That's all I've got for this week. Dylan, do you have anything? Do you want to talk for 20 more minutes about Sonic the Hedgehog, or do you think we should wind down?
I think Sega should let Vanillaware, creators of Odin Sphere, do a Sonic the Hedgehog beat 'em up.
Yes. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye!
I need to go write a petition.